Okay, so it looks like we're all set here. I'm just double checking, making sure that everything is going through, just checking my audio, and then I can get started here. It looks like I do have one viewer right now. If anybody wants to let me know if things sound okay in the chat as I'm going, because if my audio doesn't work for this, you don't have any visuals but me and a couple things I'm putting up on screen. So, okay, just got to make sure that we are all set with the chat so I can see everybody here who would like to comment or say anything. I'll just give another like 30 seconds or so to let people kind of jump in if whoever feels like watching. So, just kind of give a rundown of what I am going to be doing right now. I have a list of 15 plus games that are going to be tabletop games that are going to be coming out in the year 2020. And I want to basically go through them, talk about them a little, kind of show why I'm interested in them. The reason why I'm going through this list is because I've been asked by many people what are the games that are coming out this year that I'm excited for, that I know about, or games that I want to play. So I compiled a list of games that I'm super excited to play, or there's a few on here that I have played already, but basically all of these that I'm aware of are coming out in 2020. There may be a few delays on a couple of these to be 2021. And in that case, I did add 2 honorable mentions, which I will mention at the beginning before I get into the 15 through counting down to my top game that I'm looking forward to this year. Hey there, thanks for joining. Glad you could come on in and watch. I am not on Twitch at all. I specifically stream to YouTube. Eventually, I do want to get it set up so that whenever I do stream, it goes to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I do have a Twitch account, so I definitely can get that started. But at this point in time, I do not have the Twitch account specifically set up for this type of thing. The reason being, between all of them, the reason I want specifically to have YouTube, and I know a lot of Twitch streamers will stream on Twitch and then move that file over to YouTube. I specifically want to do it so that YouTube just uploads everything, so I don't do any editing on my stuff at all. That way it's up there, it's done. I don't have to have the content saved on my computer because I would run out of space super quick because I need more hard drive space and all that. So in the future, I do want to go to Twitch, to YouTube, and to Facebook, so that way anyone who wants to tune in can, and that way I can chat with everyone in each different grouping. But for now, yep, I knew it was you, Steph. I just, didn't call you out. So okay, let's get started. So I'll start with my my honorable mentions that I wanted to get to. So starting off first, actually, let's switch this scene over here. Bam. Okay, so this is gonna be the first time I'm doing this, so let's hope this all works out the way that I want it to. So number 15. The first one is Wonderland's War. So this is, of course, as you can tell, and it's actually, sorry, this is not, boom, number 15. This is number honorable mention. So I got 2 honorable mentions. This is the first one. So Wonderland's War. Wonderland's War, as you can tell, this is Alice in Wonderland themed game. And you can see by the art style already that it's pretty neat. I do already have a game that is done by this artist, and I'll kind of talk about that one later, but essentially it's the same person that did the Dice Throne games that I have. So it's the same artist for that, and I really like that guy's art. So let's see here. If I go here, so you can see I have a picture here from the game, and I'll try to do my best explanation of explaining what I know about it right now. It is currently on Kickstarter. I did back it, so it will be coming my way, the deluxe box, when it's out. If it's something you're interested in, check out the Kickstarter. So to explain what I know about this game, essentially, in the middle of that board that you can see, there is the table for the tea party for Alice in Wonderland. And what you guys are doing is, depending on your character, depends on which direction you go around the table. And you can move as many spaces as you want, but you basically, every time you round the head of the table, basically bad things get added to your bag. But most of the spots on the table that you stop at, it adds good things to your bag. So you don't want to whip around too fast, but you also want to move up fast enough that the other people moving with you don't take the tokens you want. So when you land on a space, it's got tokens that it shows you, and you put those tokens in your bag, and that is for the second part of each round. And so basically you're going to be keep putting stuff in your bag, going around the table, and you'll be getting Wonderlandians, which are people, specific people that are in Wonderland, and you'll be adding those to these outer spots along the board. So there's a bunch of different locations from Wonderland on the board. And you'll also be putting followers and other meeple tokens and stuff around to kind of build up your status. And then the second part of your turn building is you pull out stuff out of the bag and fight in each section by pulling out certain tokens and adding up amounts of things. And whoever wins each section gets certain things, abilities, stuff for the next round, and so on. So I'm kind of excited for it. It looks like a pretty good game. It's about, I think it's like 45 to 60 minutes. So it's an hour playtime, and it can go long if you take a long time to make decisions. But I think it'll be a really fun game, and there's a lot of high quality components. Okay, so my next honorable mention is this game here called Namiji, or Namiji. Basically, Namiji is a successor or a follower to a game called Tokaido, which is a very beautiful game where basically it took like the old paths that Japanese people used to travel from like one region to another, and you could jump all the way to the end if you wanted to in round one, and you would never have another turn. But the whole point is you want to go to a spot to start like collecting sets of things and putting things together and gathering tokens and all these things. But so Wonderland War is very similar in its middle rondel section. But Namiji, how it works is basically it adds a circle element. So I'll go to the next picture so you can see you're on boats and you're traveling around just like Tokaido, and there's spots on there where you can see there's 2 or 3 like circle dots, and those you can have up to 2 or 3 players on that and going there. And so you want to go far enough to get something you want, but you don't want to go too far that you're going to lose the game because of that. It's a very beautiful game. The art for Tokaido is amazing. I've thought about buying Tokaido many times, and this is the successor to it. So I'm hoping that this game is even better than Tokaido. We'll see. But it's the next successor. It's the next one in line. This game is, I think it was Kickstarted. I missed it somehow, but it does look beautiful, and it's one I'm definitely interested in playing. And if I like it enough, I'll probably buy it. But as of right now, it's just a gorgeous, good-looking game. It looks like Steph in the chat says that she thinks the aesthetics are pretty, and I totally agree. It looks like an amazing game. Okay, so now we're going to start off with my number 15. So we're going to move into Iwari. So Iwari was a game that is a game by Thundergriff Games, which there'll be another Thundergriff game on this list. I really like the art that Thundergriff does for all of their games. They're beautiful, they're aesthetically pleasing, and Iwari was a unique theme. There's not a lot of like kind of Native American tribe games that I've seen out there, and this game looks gorgeous. It plays super interestingly, and it's just the theme is very awesome. So essentially, from what I remember of how this works, the board is double-sided, or it comes with multiple boards or something like that, and you're going to be placing on your turn. You'll be placing little like teepees or tents or whatever around in certain spots on the board. And when you do that, there's only certain paths you can take, and the regions are separated by colors, and depending on how many of those you have in each region can depend on if you have the full influence in that area. And then there's also totems that can be built up if you do certain things to build up a totem stack. And so that will also affect scoring. So basically it's sort of an area control game, but it's different than, placing a piece down, rolling a die, and fighting other people. It's more about, okay, I'm gonna place in this spot, and then if they place over here, I won't be able to get the points that I need. So I have to figure out a different way to place. And I think, as you can see, there's cards there. And I think this is a card-driven game on placement, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, because this game was on Kickstarter a long while ago. But here, let me see if they have another. Yeah, so here's another picture of it, kind of so you can see the game overview of kind of what the board looks like in full. You can see those big chunky pieces are the main totems that are built in those circle spots. And then there's also, like the little pieces and all the cards and stuff. It's a very beautiful game. I think it looks really nice. I did not back it for reasons, which I will get to later in another game when I explain Thundergriff's other game. But it's definitely one to look forward to. I definitely want to try it, play it. It's one that I really am thinking about getting, because it's 1 to 5 players, so it hits that 5-player vibe that I end up getting a lot, because you usually hit that 5-6 player with a lot of groups that we play. So let's go to number 14. So number 14 on my list is a game called Cinder. It actually just dropped on Kickstarter 2 days ago on Valentine's Day, because it's all about dating dragons. This is a wonderful game by Smirk and Laughter. I love Smirk and Dagger and Smirk and Laughter's games. So this one is very fun. I have played this before. I played it in the prototype version, and it is fantastically funny. And if you get a group together that just likes to enjoy themselves and have a really good time, this game is fantastic. Essentially what you're going to do is you get a main image of a character, and you fill out their profile. You give them, a name, and then you'd say, like, if you're interested, if you like it hot, cold, or mild, if you like, like aggressive, passive, whatever. And there's 4 selections. You can kind of see it on the board. I don't know how small you're looking at the screen, but those orange lines in the middle of those profiles where you fill it out. And then what you're going to do is there are basically dragons that come up in the middle, and you're going to basically swipe right or swipe left, keeping them there or getting rid of them. And they have a little profile that kind of helps you figure out maybe if they'll match you. And what you want to do is the more that match your stats, the better. So you select a dragon, flip it over, and on the back side it has its statistics and its stats of what it likes. And the more you get right, the better chance that you have to succeed when you go on a date. And so you go on a date with the dragon, going for like lunch or snack time or dinner or whatever, and you use cards to pull what the conditions are of the date, of how far you have to get, or like what you roll. And you go on 3 different dates. I believe it's 3. And then if you fully succeed, you can win the game, or if you collect enough of hearts over a period of time or something like that. I know that the game ending has shifted multiple times since I first played it. So it's a very fun looking game. It's a pure amusement, and it's Smirk and Laughter. So it's an ultimate choice for me. And like I said, this is a Kickstarter game. I already backed this right away because it's totally worth it. And with Kurt Covert being the designer, hands down, great game. I'm super excited. So, number 13, Sleeping Gods. This is a game that I will probably wait to get for a while. It is one of Red Raven's games, and Red Raven makes a lot of games by a designer named Ryan Lockett. I have played multiple of Ryan Lockett's games, Above and Below. I've played Islebound. There's another game out there by his that is called I want to say Now and Then, but it's Near and Far. And then this is his next game in that grouping, Sleeping Gods. Near and Far is a great game. It's fantastic, but it from what it looks like and everything, it plays very similar to Above and Below, so I didn't want to get it since I already had that. And Sleeping Gods is basically his next one. So all of Ryan Lockett's games in this genre is essentially a story game. And so with this, what you're going to be doing is you will, do some type of action or whatever. Usually in Above and Below it was exploring. And then you would read from a little book to describe kind of the situation. And then from that, you would say, oh, I want to do this, or I want to do that, kind of like a choose your own adventure. And then from that, you would end up rolling dice or doing something, flipping cards, and then you would basically find out what happens at that point. So it's kind of a story element game that builds up. Here's a kind of a picture of what the board looks like. You have your central map, and it looks like that's a book right there in the middle, so you basically can flip and do a bunch of different stories. There's a slew of cards, characters that you can run into, tons of stuff. It looks super fun. I don't know quite what to expect, which is why it's kind of up higher on the list, but the game looks quite fun and very enjoyable. So it looks like, Steph said that she really thought the premise of the last game, Cinder, looked really good, really funny. Yeah, so I agree with you, completely funny. This is Sleeping Gods. It looks like it's going to be a really fun game, a good time. Definitely want to play it before I purchase, just to see if it's still too close to Above and Below for me, or if it's something that is good and improved upon enough that I'll just hands down get the game. So that's that one. Next up, Monumental. This is a game that I kickstarted, I think, 1.5 years ago or so. It was a really long time ago. I think this is one of the older games on my Kickstarter that has not come in yet. It was due this year, or last year, November, December, or this year, January, I think. So it's running only a few months behind with everything that's going on in China, and I'll say that tons of times with everything on this list, pretty much, that I already kickstarted and it's coming in. But this game's gotten a little bit of delays, but not too much. But essentially, Monumental. I'll switch over to the game view. So you can't really see too much because it's probably really small, but essentially in the center of the board, there's modular pieces that all kind of fit together to kind of create an area. In that area, you're going to have these bunch of miniatures, which are your armies and stuff. They're on the bottom. So this one works off of what's called area control, where basically you're trying to control the area. But I think there's also, it's less area control and more mission based. So I think like your armies are supposed to go do something, and then they don't have to be there anymore, and they can go do something else. And how your armies move, what they do, is all card driven, and it's actually played in front of you down in kind of like a 3x3 grid, and the card you play next to might have to affect it in some way. So you kind of like play this down, and then you trigger stuff off of each other to basically have this huge combo, and then you use that combo to do the stuff on the board. And I think like everything on the board is mission based to gather points and do all that kind of stuff. So it looks really good. Visually, the game's very interesting, and the miniatures, there's tons of very unique and detailed miniatures. So that's why Monumental is a game that I'm very excited for. I think it's going to be very hard to teach people, and it's kind of going to probably be a more longer-winded game. I think that the box says 60 to 90 minutes. It's probably going to be like a 3-hour game the first time I play, because it's going to be a really long play. But I believe, if I'm correct, I think there is a solo element to the game that I can do to learn and play. I might be wrong about that. It's been a while, but I think it's probably going to be best at 3 to 5 players. But I know, it's just going to take a while to teach. But I'm very excited for the game. I'm interested in the new mechanics. I've never seen a mechanic like that where you play a 3x3 grid and your cards work off of each other like that. So, okay, let's go to our next one. Number 11, Tiny Footprint. Tiny Footprint is a cute little game, or at least it looks little. It's probably actually a bigger box, but it's a board game about sustainability. So basically, in the world we live in today, where basically everything costs a tremendous amount of money to do anything, to live anywhere, to do all that stuff, basically you have the climate issues and emission problems, and you have like big city living and all this kind of stuff. And so this game is about you and the other players trying to work together, but not, because you're trying to make sure that you're not causing too much damage to the climate. You're not causing too much damage to what you're doing. So you're all working together in that sense, but you're also trying to still beat everyone else. So it's a really weird balance game, and I think it's going to be a really fun introspection about like the way our society is and what we really should like pay attention to in terms of our like carbon footprint and all that kind of stuff. It's really unique, really interesting. I'm really excited for it to come in. It was one of those, it's like, yes, I want to get this. That's a unique theme. It's very different. And I think it'll be very enjoyable. Looks like about Monumental, the previous game, number 12. Natalie mentioned, do you play as different cultures? That I'm aware of, you do. Each character setup is set to do, or each player has a different faction that they play that's tuned towards different groupings. So I know that there's like some base cards that I think are similar between everyone, but like your miniatures and your like culture and some of your cards are unique to you. So okay, yeah, that was Tiny Footprint. So that's what that's about. Let's move down to number 10. Okay, so this was a game I actually just found out about like a week and a half ago, I think, or 2 weeks ago, and sounds really good. This is one of the ones that I'm not sure if it's coming out in 2020 or if it's coming out in 2021. I don't know if it's moving forward for production or if it's falling into getting ready for the Kickstarter and then it's going to launch. So basically, Lawyer Up is a game system that they're designing that allows two people to fight over a case. So basically, you have one person who's on one side and one who's on the other. And what's going to be happening in this game is essentially there is evidence. And so there's a deck of cards that's for this case. So let's say I could take the murder deck and do the murder case, or I can take the robbery deck and do a robbery case, or I can do whatever, assassination deck and go with that, or whatever, however you want to do it. And so those decks, I think there's going to be, I know one in the base game, there may be multiple, but I know that they are working on multiple different cases so that the system works across multiple playthroughs, and this game is highly replayable depending on how you do it. Excuse me. Sorry. So essentially how this one works is there's the deck, the murder deck, let's say, because I know that one's probably the one that's the first one in the game. What's going to happen is one person gets dealt 3 cards, so I would get dealt 3 cards and your opponent would be dealt 3. You look at it, you keep one, you give one to your opponent, and then the other one gets thrown away. And so as you go through this deck, you put all those throwaway cards off to the side, back in the box, and now each of you only have a third of the actual like evidence. So whether it's like, oh, I had the murder weapon, or I had this the key that we found at the location or whatever. So it's a lot of like unique elements, and what you're doing is you're building a case against it. So someone comes in, so this one's Diana Lawrence, and so she comes in and she has a symbol of a heart, a thumb up, and a skull. And so what you do is you base your argument off of like comboing these symbols. So you can basically be like, oh, well, we found this evidence of a bloody knife, and you basically start to prosecute the witness and talk to them, and you go back and forth. One goes all the way through, and the next person goes all the way through, kind of like basically asking questions towards them and making grandiose statements to sway the jurors. And so after you make this combo, you have 10 people for the murder case, and you both go back and forth, and whoever wins is the person who gets the most comboed symbols, and there's other stuff involved in that. But what happens is every time that you win that person, essentially you won that argument. There's judges over here to the side. As you can see on the right side of the screen, there's list of not judges, the people in the jury. Sorry, the jury. So you're swaying the people in the jury. So some of those people can be swayed very easily. And once they get all the way to one side, it locks them in place. Other people, it takes 4 or 5 points to convince to only move them one, where another person may only take 1 point. And so each person has so many points. And so the goal is if you can have just one person doubt it, then you don't win because you need an anonymous vote. And so the whole goal is to try to get everyone over, and you have to do it as efficient as possible. And if they win, they can pull people back. And it's a really interesting concept. And like I said, I just learned about it, so it's kind of fresh in my head. But it definitely looks really good, and I'm really excited about that one. Okay, let's go to number 9, Arc Ravels. This game is super, super cute. I backed this game on Kickstarter. This is another one of the Kickstarters. So, like, I have found out through most of my games through Kickstarter because I'm not a game developer myself. I'm not in the industry to where I'm like, privileged to know a lot of this information. I do go to conventions and all that kind of stuff, and I learn about a lot of stuff beforehand. But most of my stuff comes from like Kickstarter or pre-release knowledge and stuff. So I have a lot of Kickstarters. So this one was a Kickstarter. It's basically a themed game about sewing stuff. That sounds super boring, but it actually looks like a really, really nice game. So what's going to happen is there are 6 colors of material or yarn that you're going to be using. And you have a board in front of you. Let's see if the other picture has it. Yeah. Okay. So you have a board in front of you, and you're going to be trying to collect materials from the center of different color. You can get one color that's just like, oh, here, I grab a green ball of yarn, or here I have a blue, pink, and yellow yarn. And you can basically, you spend time gathering those. And then you also can purchase groups of items to try to sew together. And you have certain objectives and goals that you're trying to do, like, oh, so many of this, or the most of this type of item, and so on. And as you sew them up, you collect the tokens for them. And you also have like objectives that are over the course of the game, that help you get extra victory and stuff like that. It's a really cute, fast-paced, should only take about a half an hour to play. But it looks super cute. It's very vibrant, and the art is really nice looking. I think it's very pretty. So that one I'm very excited about. I don't remember when that's coming in, but it looks great. Okay, moving down to Dice Realms, number 8. I am excited and worried about this game at the same time. Dice Realms, I think, is going to be the next big Rio Grande game. The last huge Rio Grande game was Dominion, and Dominion's a fantastic game. But this is a different creator, but Rio Grande is doing this, and I think they're spending a good amount of money. Yes. Okay. So rewind. Andrew said that the last Arc Rivals will be good with hit with cosplay friends. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think cosplay people will love Arc Rivals. So or Ravels, Arc Ravels. Sorry, I keep calling it Rivals. Oh, so okay. So Dice Realms, why this game is going to be really good, but also I don't know how well it's going to do, is basically there has been multiple games out there right now that's all about dice building. And so some of them are about, oh, you have this dice and then you put it off to the side because you upgraded to this new die. And so basically they make it so your game has a bunch of dice in it. There's other games that are like, oh, here, your die you're gonna get more die, and so you have a dice pool, and so you're gonna roll from those. Dice Realms works differently. It actually works similar to a dice building game I have called Dice Forge, where basically on your turn you're gonna be doing stuff to pop off the face of the die and put a new one on. And I think that Dice Forge is a great game. But there's some stuff that's kind of lacking about it that I just can't place what's wrong with it. It's not as good as I hoped it would be. I think it's very fun, but it's not super contained and very tight in how it plays. I find that most games kind of one person can run away with it if they get really far up, and you can't do anything about it, because you're stuck so far behind. But with Dice Realms, what's going to be interesting is you start with 2 dice and you roll, and basically the whole point of it, I think I have a picture here. Yeah, so the whole point of it, you roll, you can do the things on the cards in the center, so there's randomness in terms of what cards get laid out for how you're going to build up. So that adds variety. And then at the end of your turn, you purchase, and you can purchase die faces. So you pop off the die face that you have and put on new ones. And so the dice that you're using, the 2 dice that you start with, have the same amount of faces, and you keep upgrading them and make them better. But then you also can purchase a 3rd die or 4th die. You can upgrade those. And so the whole point of the game is to upgrade the dice. It looks super fun, but visually it looks pretty basic in terms of the dice faces and all that. So art is not going to draw people in. The cardboard locations, or whatever you want to call them, do look nice. They have a decent style of art. Rio Grande generally does that like old style Euro art fairly well. And the big thing is, I think, going to be the cost for the game. I don't like to spend really over $60 on a game unless it's like, oh, that has like extra super good components and now it's miniatures and all this kind of stuff. I generally don't try to buy into that. But this game, I think, is going to be around like $80. And so I'm really hesitant to just jump in and buy it. But it's definitely one I really want to try to see if it's as good as I think it's going to be. I think this is going to be their next big hit. I think it's going to be huge for Rio Grande. So we'll see what they end up going with. But I'm excited to play it. I think it's going to be really fun, and I'm pretty sure it's going to release at Gen Con this year. So I'll find out fairly quick after Gen Con ends what people are saying and how they think about it. Okay, next up is Dance Card. Okay, Dance Card, for me, the reason why I decided this is a Kickstarter game and that I decided to back, it reminds me of a game I played years ago. I still have it, called High School Drama. The art style is somewhat similar to me. It's got a really cute art style, and it gives off like this young teenage kind of vibe to it. But where High School Drama kind of has this thing where you're just basically working on connections and signatures and all this kind of stuff for your yearbook, this basically puts everything into a dance. The goal is to dance with all the partners on your list. So in the bottom part of that picture, you can see that there's your character on the top left, and then there's 3 people that I believe that you do not want to dance with, that you basically don't want to be in the same space of. And then the list going down below your character is each person that you would like to dance with and the people that they want to dance with. So that way, if they're in the same space as one of those other people, you can't dance with them because they're dancing with them. And the whole goal is to get into a spot or a location with them, dance with them when none of them are around, and then move on and do that to all 3 of your people. If you're the first person to do that, you win. And so the actions that you play are like, oh, you can move one person to location that's not another player. There's also an action disc that it looks like a record that you turn to select like certain movements and certain things. I know there's a lot of cards that play in that like affect like how people move and what you can and can't do. Like there might be a card that someone says, oh, nobody can dance in the green and yellow sections this turn. So basically, if that happens and you're in that and you had a perfect setup, it might not work. So there's a little bit of randomness to it, but I feel like the fun and the strategy is in there. And every single character or every single player on that board, which I think there's like 64 different people, are all playable characters that all have their own select people to dance with. And what's great is all the characters are not like specific to who you're going to dance to. Just because you have a male character doesn't mean that you're going to dance with only females. There's a lot of variety in there in terms of there's guys that'll dance with either, because you see people dancing out there with their friends. You see different types of couples, a gay couple, a lesbian couple dancing, and that's cool. So like I think that's really neat that they added that in, and they specifically brought that up, that people of different race background, sexual orientation, and all that kind of stuff will be represented in this game. And I thought that was really cool, because that's something that you don't actually see a lot in games, because there's no good way to express it a lot. Oh, I'm fighting a dragon, but like in here, it's a great way to represent it, and I think they did a really good job. So I'm really excited for this game to come out. It looks fun. I know they were selling shirts and stuff, but it looks really cool. Okay, so next game. Okay, Dungeon Drop. Dungeon Drop is a Kickstarter game that is coming out this year, and I've already played it because it just came in this week. So I'm very excited. I got to play a game the other night, and I really enjoyed it. So to explain kind of really quick what happens in this game is you have a bunch of cubes that are really small, and you just pick them up and you pour them on the table. So they spread out however big your table is. Anything that falls off, just pick it up, redrop it. And you have a bag full of other size cubes that are specifically set off to the side at the beginning. And what you're going to do is essentially on your turn, you pull out however many cubes it says per the amount of players. You drop them on the board, and then you look around and you try to find gray squares or gray cubes. And those count as pillars. If you connect 3 of them where you go, oh, I'm going to go from here to here to here, and there's no other pillars on the inside, you connect and make a room. And everything in that room you get to pick up and add to the side of your player. And every cube has a different effect. Some of them are just straight up 1 point. Other ones deal different victory depending on what your victory conditions are, because you have a kind of a different thing that tells you how many points your specific cubes are. You have monsters in there that if you pull them, because you grab that room, you'll get hit. There's a dragon that takes away like 8 health, which basically is an insta-kill unless you have like a magic shield, which you can pick up in there, and armor you can pick up. And there's even a solo mode for stairs. So like basically if you get the stairs, you get to go to the next level and you redrop the cubes and you start all over, continuously going up. So it's an interesting game, very fun. The amount of mixture between character classes and character races are really cool. So I think some of that replay value will be very fun with that mixture. So I definitely really like Dungeon Drop so far. I've only got to play it once, but so far it's a really good game. Okay, number 5. Okay, this is one I didn't know if it counted, which is why I added 2 honorable mentions at the beginning. Everdell is a game that came out a while back, but basically there's 2 expansions that are releasing this year. And I'm really excited for both of these. I already actually have a box insert to organize the pieces when they come in, because I'm super excited about it. I do really like Everdell. It plays very well. It's a worker placement game and a tableau building game. So you're building up the sections in front of you with cards that can only get so big, and you place out your workers to do all the different actions, to grab cards, to trigger effects, to gather resources, all that kind of stuff. So there's 2 expansions, Spirecrest and Belfair. So this is Spirecrest, and basically it looks, I don't know too much about this one, but I know that there's these giant meeples that you can put little, oh my god, I can't think of, saddles. There you go. I couldn't think of the word. You put saddles on their back, and your little meeples can sit on that, which is super adorable and cute. The big meeples will go from spot to spot, or I don't know if you can like skip multiple spots, but basically you can land on these areas and do these different varying effects. And it also adds rabbit travelers, which I do not know what they do. I'm super curious on what they add, because the last expansion, Pearlbrook, added a good amount of variety with their amphibian ambassadors. So this game is super duper cute, and I'm excited to see what this one has to offer. The next section, which is Belfair, is something I'm a little bit more excited about. Essentially, what it does is it gets rid of some of the weird victory at the end that's kind of random. And what it does is it allows you to do basically have a fair, and it adds some different victory conditions. Um, it adds some new locations and new places, and it adds some like different ways to get victory at the end of the game. So you're not like, oh, I have a meeple and I have nothing to do and I won't get any points. But you can now go up here and you go, oh, I have this many things left, I get this many points. So it's a nice way to get some extra points right at the end. But the main thing I'm excited for with this is this expansion comes with a race effect for each different because each when you go to play the game, you just basically choose whatever shape meeples you want. Oh, I'm going to be the cardinals. I'm going to be the platypuses. I'll be the squirrels, the rats, whatever. And this, what it does is that's just a random thing before, but now each race gets its own special power. So if you go, I want to play the rats, you get a little rat card that you set out, and then you have a special power for the whole game that can help you. And with how many varieties there are, I think there's like 12 or 13 different groupings for races. You have a whole unique power set with every single one of them, and one of them is going to match your play style. So I am super excited about that. I think that'll be really fun, and they said you can play with any of these expansions. You can play with one, you can play with all of them. So of course I'm going to put them all together and try to play with them, but because I'm crazy that way, and that's what'll make it fun. But I'm super excited about that. That's Everdell's 2 expansions. Okay, next up, Dice Throne Adventures. So I said I was going to get back to Dice Thrones earlier. So like Wonderland War being an honorable mention of mine, the same artist is doing Dice Thrones Adventures. So I kickstarted this game. Basically, it uses the characters from Dice Thrones, Season 1 and Season 2. And part of this, Season 1, they did a re-release now, or a reprint, where basically they redid all the art for it. And they added 2 new characters to Season 1. So I'll be getting the 2 new characters and everything, and I'll be getting Dice Thrones Adventures. So now Dice Thrones Adventures creates kind of a dungeon for you to work cooperatively with the group instead of combating against them to go through and defeat the dungeon. And so you can see by this image here, the box is going to be pretty big, and it's going to come with a standee of each hero. And then you're going to have a gold that's shared between you, because you can gain gold and stuff throughout the adventure. And as you can see, there's 3 different monster cards over there to the left, which are the 3 levels of difficulty, 1, 2, and 3. And so you're going to be going through multiple levels of the dungeon. I believe that there's 4 levels. And then at the end of the 4th one, you fight one of the main bosses. And so there's basically a shape that you need to make every single dungeon layer. So the first one has one type of shape. The second level has another type of shape. And it's set down whether there's 1, 2, or there's 3s in those certain spots. And those are all randomly figured out. And when your person moves there, you flip that over, you do that effect. And you can get help from other people if they're in the same spot as you, and so on. But it looks like a very, very fun game. It's got a lot of unique cards and interesting stuff, and it does come with new characters that you can play, but it also you can't. They're really, really powerful, so you can't use them as a one-on-one type of character. But they're great if you're like, hey, why don't we as a group of 3 fight it off against this one person, because maybe your group really likes 3 versus 1 style play. This would work great for that. So this is a wonderful thing to where it's like, oh, hey, we have these boss-like characters. We can just play normal Dice Thrones, multiple versus 1 opponent, or we can play this kind of Adventures-like aspect where you're working with these different different cards and different abilities and trying to make a more adventure, kind of more D&D out of it, or role-playing situation. So that's Dice Thrones Adventures, my number 4. Okay, so next up is a game by Orange Nebula called Unsettled. Unsettled is a super, super interesting game. I really don't have a good way to describe it, but essentially the storyline is this. You and your shipmates crash land on a planet. They basically go to a planet. Not sure, they could have ran out of gas. That aspect gets explained in the depending on the planet. You might have gotten pulled down by the gravitational pull, or you were curious and went down to take a closer look, and now for some reason you can't get off the planet. But what makes this game interesting, before I get into the mechanics of how the game works, what makes me really, really like the concept of this game is basically they're building this game as a system. And so what they can do is they are going to make it modular. So there's a planet that comes out with the game in the base, and that's like a good way to learn. It's a basic understanding of the game, but it's a good adventure in itself. And if you only play that, that is just fine. But what they're doing is they're coming up with planet modules, so you can go out and you can just buy this planet, you know. So, oh, here's the planet, blah blah blah, and what you do is everything for that planet that you play on, all the cards that you use for flipping over for effects and all that kind of stuff, all the things that could happen to your characters, unique situations and conditions, are all unique to that planet. And so you are basically going to be playing a whole new scenario every time. So if you're on one planet and it's like, oh, low gravity, it's awesome because we can skip over sections of the map and we can float really far. Well, on low gravity on another planet might cause you a lot of issues. So systems that are good in one planet may be horrible for you in another. And that's what's going to make it super interesting, because there's so much going on all the time and everything's very unique to the planet. All the basic rules are the same, but you end up having to modify the way that you play because of the planet's conditions. You know, you might have to spend 3 times long doing something on this planet because it's so much harder than it is in the other one, you know, and vice versa. So it's really unique. So when you're looking at the board here, you have your player boards, which it's a 4-player game, and you have 3 dice, and each of those dice are different colored, and each of those colors do different things. So you have a blue, green, and orangish red. And what you do is every time you use that die, you pip it down. So it's like if it's on a 6, it goes to a 5. And then you use it again, it goes to a 4. And I think really they only have 3 through 1 on there, maybe. And I think they're, depending on your planet, you may start in different spots. But basically, you're going to spend the die to do something on your turn, and you're going to work towards a goal, a main objective. On the far right side of that picture, you'll see that there's a time counter and then a bunch of things that you have to accomplish. So like, let's say we crash landed on a planet, we have to do a funeral for our crew. And so that's something we have to do in a certain spot on the planet, you know, like 1 square away from where your ship crashed. You need to, all 4 of you need to be there and end your turn in there for 1 round, or something like that. And then other ones say, oh, you need to research this to do this. So you have to spend money on the things on the left, or spend points to the things on the left to build up that amount of things, to like build a station to research this, to grind this down, to then all of a sudden use it for your ship. So then when you fuel that, your ship is good and your ship can leave, and then you have to fix something on your ship. And so there's a lot of like missions and things you have to do, and it's random on which one of those come up at which time. And so you're not like stuck playing the same exact scenario. You're getting completely random things coming out, and you want to try to finish them up quickly so they don't build up too much, so that you won't be able to do anything. And there is a limit on how many can come out and all that kind of stuff. And then the time counter, if the time counter goes down, you reset it, and then a new condition comes up that you have to meet. And so the more time you waste moving around and doing things, the more conditions you actually have to fight against to get off the planet, so the harder it makes it. And then I know there's also like a rest action that you can flip one of your dice all the way up to the top and stuff. If, you know, so there's a lot of unique scenarios and a lot of things, and Unsettled looks fantastic. Another thing about it that I really like are the trays. So here's an example of how the trays look. you can see they spent a lot of time trying to get it to look really nice, to get everything to fit perfect in a spot so you can pull it out and it's easily transportable and mobile, and you can do whatever you need to. And so to me, I really like that. I really like the idea of being like, oh, we're going to play with this planet today. Let's put that in the big box and let's take it someplace. So I think organization is key for me because I have a lot of games and I want to make sure that the space my shelf can allow for it. And they did a great job with their game components. And Orange Nebula has made another game that Vindication that a lot of people really love. I haven't played it yet, but this game looks to be right up my alley of space exploration, and it's not about fighting. There's no fighting in this game. Everything's solved through going to some place and doing research. So it feels very like Star Trek to me, and I really like that. So the game looks fantastic. Components look amazing. I'm super excited, which is why it's my number 3. Okay, going down to number 2, Tidal Blades. I knew absolutely nothing about this game when I first heard about it, and I'm going to tell you right now, the art of this game impressed the hell out of me. This game is gorgeous. You can tell by how the cover looks. It just looks so nice. And the components do not slack on it either. So if you look at how much space that the components take up, it is a beautiful, gorgeous looking game. This is considered a worker placement game. You are going to be basically taking your guy, going someplace, triggering that action, and changing some of the dials that you have on your player board, or collecting resources, or switching out and grabbing new dice. And so the whole point is to basically end up getting the furthest on the victory track before everyone else, because I believe you're racing off in a kind of a game or like a kind of a arena style thing where you're all trying to do the same thing and you're trying to do it better than the other person. But it just looks gorgeous. I mean, you look at some of these components; these are like pure beauty shots right here of all the different dice in the games, and how the components are all these nice like chunky pieces that feel really good. Apparently, those orange ones are like squishy, so you squeeze them and they have like a little bit of give to them as the plastic, but they're like a nice solid plastic. And you can see how well all the components and everything fit beautifully into the box. Like, I'm super excited to play this game. I saw it at Gen Con last year in a prototype stage, and even the prototype pieces looked gorgeous. I'm just really overly excited for this game, and since it's part 1, I am super looking forward to a second part of this game in the future when I'm played this a bunch and I was like, this is amazing, I love it, and I get part 2. So this is a game that I kickstarted and backed, and I'm really super excited to get that in when it comes in. I think it'll be a few more months before it gets to here, because I know they're working on fixing some of the components and the box inserts and stuff like that they've been working on. So I'm really excited to see what this game has to offer. Okay, and my number 1 most anticipated game of 2020 is Tangarden. For those of you who have talked to me in person, there's no doubt that I haven't already mentioned this game to you. I'm going to say, disclaimer right away, I am really upset about how the Kickstarter has been going with this game. I'm really disappointed that that it was due. I'm pretty sure that the game was due January of last year. And so I understand like a month or 2 delay because of issues. And I understand that they did have a production issue where they said, oh, hey, this piece doesn't work, it'll fall apart, or it doesn't fit in the box the way we designed it, which was a major oversight on them. But I understand that they had to rework something. So it took a couple months to do that. But a year is a long time to wait for a game, especially when I was expecting this earlier. Because their other game, Iwari, the one that was my number 15, that game is getting close. That's right behind Tangarden, and that came out. That Kickstarter was like a year after Tangarden, and so That's why I didn't back the Iwadi, because I was worried that I would have the same problems. So it doesn't look like they're having the same issue. But Tang Garden is a gorgeous game, and I'm very excited because I have already played this game on Tabletop Simulator because I could not wait because I was very excited. So let's take a look at the game here. So I do have a playthrough of this on my channel. It's me playing it solo, so it's a little bit different from the actual rules, but if you want to check it out and see what it's like, you can definitely check it out on there. So this game is more of a tile placement game. So what's going to happen is you can see there's 4 stacks of tiles in the corner. They're all face up, so you know exactly what the tile is, and then you basically get to pick one of those tiles and place it on the board where it connects to another piece of land. So if you match grass to grass, paths to paths, water to water, rock to rock, and all that kind of stuff, so that it fits in like a puzzle piece because you're building a garden. Then at any point, like let's say that was my turn, then it's someone else's, they would go, oh, I'm going to play a decoration. So they would get 2 decoration cards plus however many tiles are missing from the top of those piles. So in this case, it would only be 1 extra, so they would have 3 cards to pick from. They place it down, and there's certain spots that get different decorations. You know, in grassy forest areas, you can put down those type of things like a peonies or a different type of tree. You know, in the water, you can put like a koi fish or a duck or a water lily or whatever. And basically, as you're building out this land or this garden, you're placing all these decorations to make it more beautiful and more vibrant. And then when you reach out so far, you start placing your tiles on these tokens that are called landscape tokens. And those tokens allow you to put these landscape tiles, which are these like beautiful background landscapes that have symbols in their corner that help for endgame scoring. And so you're going to be placing all those, paying attention to those, and then you also have a board in front of you that keep track of how many times you've matched water to water or grass to grass or rock to rock. And every time you do that or finish a section that has that, you move forward 1 on your track. And when you get so far, you get a new person that has a new ability, and you can place either the new person or the old person onto the board in a spot, and you face them a direction. So you put them down, you pick a direction for them to face, and they're going to be facing that way till the end of scoring, because they also, besides you getting points throughout the game, they're also giving you endgame scoring when they're looking a direction, how many decorations are in sight from them to the landscape. Does the landscape have any of the symbols that they're looking for? Do the tiles have any of the land types that they're looking for? And all that gets totaled up in the end to give you the amount of victory conditions you're looking for. It looks like a beautiful game. It's gorgeous as all hell, and I've been excited for it for a very long time. So that's why it's my number 1 to come out this year. I cannot wait for it to come out. I'm really looking forward to playing it. So that is my top 15, plus a couple honorable mentions. So I'll just run through them again right now so you can kind of hear them all. My honorable mentions were Wonderland's War and Namiji. Then my number 15 was Iwadi. 14 was Cinder. Number 13 was Sleeping Gods. Number 12 was Monumental. Number 11 was Tiny Footprint. Number 10 was Lawyer Up. Number 9 was Arch Ravels. Number 8 is Dice Realms. Number 7 is Dance Card. Number 6 is Dungeon Drop. Number 5 is Everdell's expansion Belfair and Spirecrest. Number 4 is Dice Thrones Adventures. Number 3 is Unsettled. Number 2 is Tidal Blades, Heroes of the Reef. And number 1 is Tang Garden. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I enjoyed having everybody here kind of listening, some people commenting on what games looked interesting. If you know me personally and there's any games that you want to talk about or kind of go through, make a comment below, send me a message, talk to me in person, whatever. But these are the games that I'm excited to play this year. I'm only getting 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not okay. I shouldn't say only, because 12 of these I've backed on Kickstarter already. Uh, so I'm really 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm only not getting 4 of these games by default. I haven't bought 4 of these games already. So the ones that I have not backed, I will look into and probably end up purchasing, because this year is looking to be a very good year for games that I'm very, very excited for. And there's multiple companies that have not released some of the games that are coming out. Like, I love Smirk and Laughter and Smirk and Dagger games. I don't know some of the games that are coming out for them besides Cinder. I know they have one other, I can't remember the name right now, that looks interesting, but I don't know what else they have, and they usually release 3 to 4 games each year, so there's probably going to be 2 games that I'm going to want from them. And yeah, so that's my list. If I missed any games that you guys know about that you're excited for, add it in the comments. Let me know. I'm super excited to play and hang out and do any of these games. So let me know what you think, and you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining me for the stream.